Kimberly, Tim, welcome. Tim, to you first. How are climate policies impacting global trade? What are some of the key themes here?
Well, as we see the world take concrete action to get closer to net zero, really countries and companies can't ignore the fact that we trade a lot of carbon embedded in the products that we sell globally. And a lot of those things like steel, cement and so forth are very energy intensive. So countries are focusing much more now on this trade in embodied carbon in products and looking at ways in which we can decarbonise that as well as countries' own industries.
Talk to me, if you would, about carbon competitiveness.
Well, as this increased linkage between trade and climate happens, and we're here today ahead of the first ever trade day at a COP, we see companies and countries really more exposed if they are trading a lot of these energy intensive products. Because as particularly developed economies make it harder or more expensive for those products to be sold in their markets, countries and companies that don't up their game on decarbonisation will increasingly find their competitiveness reduced and them being cut out of these global supply chains.
Kimberly, how will these new trade policies play out, do you think, in the decade to come? What scenarios do you imagine?
Yeah, it's a complex question, and so to help us understand how both trade policies will play out as well as climate policies, we mapped the two against each other to create 4 scenarios. So in our first scenario, you have climate on track. This is where you have lots of good trade cooperation, you've scaled green goods trade and services, you've got green markets, you've also got development cooperation syncing up and working nicely with corporate supply chain efforts. Now, then in our second scenario, this is a bit more complicated. You've got what we call this as fractured effort. You've got countries looking to create climate clubs, but those outside the climate club maybe not so happy. You've got trade tensions, maybe some trade wars. And you've got a really an unbalanced levels of investment. So developed countries have got quite a lot of green investment, but developing countries maybe being a bit left behind. In that context, we see emissions only coming down by 2030 by 30%, which puts us off track for the Paris Agreement. And in the last 2 scenarios, we have exponential disasters, which I think the name is clear. It's really a world where you've got trade wars, you've got resource conflict over critical minerals supply, you've also got conflict in key supply chains like food, and of course a drying up of green investment. And then the last scenario is a little bit more nuanced. Here you have what we call collective avoidance. So you actually see countries push off their climate policies to midterm targets and focus a little bit less on those 2030 targets that we need, which itself actually ends up drying up green goods markets. You don't get that green premium that business are looking to get from climate policies, and therefore also green trade policies are left a little bit to the wayside.
We hear so much about collaboration, about private and public sector working together. In your mind, what is the best way to do that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I think as a lot of these policies are going to start to evolve over the next couple of years in quite a rapid manner, it's critical that business and governments talk to each other about the balance that they want to achieve with these policies. And I say that, I caveat that as business talk to governments about how to get these both climate and trade policies right, we really need to see business setting strong science-based targets themselves to give that legitimacy that they are seriously themselves moving towards net zero in their business and their supply chain. But then once they've done that, that does give them a little bit of credibility to come to governments and say, look, when you set these trade policies, when you set these climate policies, this is the balance that we're looking to achieve. Think about this from a regional or global perspective and not just from that domestic market perspective.
Kimberly, Tim, thank you so much.
Thank you.